Hey there guys, Zach here from WinBeta, and welcome to episode number 58 of the WinBeta podcast for the week of March 25th, 2016. With me is co-host Sean Michael. Hey there, Sean.
Hey there, Zach. How's it going?
Not too bad. Today, you may have noticed Sean is still, and that's because he has no video today. his audio here, so audio listeners, nothing has changed this week. But for the video guys, you don't need to keep telling me he's frozen. We know he's frozen.
Oh, don't worry, Zach. They'll tell you for the next hour and a half.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. But yes, this is the WinBeta podcast. We have a few stories this week, not much big news. A couple things that we're going to dive into today, so I guess we should get started with a new Windows 10 build. I think this is a common story now. Every week we talk about a new Windows 10 build.
Yeah, but this one, they released two at the same time.
They did that last week.
All right, then. I have nothing.
Yeah, and also the best last week's build actually had some features in it. This week's build has nothing in it. So, hooray! New build. That's pretty much all we have to say about that. Literally, there's nothing else new in this build. Lots of fixes, which I'm not going to go through because they're boring. Windows Hello is kind of broken. Something to do with Bluetooth. Weirdly, Bluetooth and Windows Hello somehow connected in this build. So if something's wrong with Windows Hello or Bluetooth, the other thing doesn't work properly. So read the thing if you're not entirely sure if you want to upgrade. It will tell you if your feature isn't working. Now, there's also another story this week. Redstone Insider build sent out to older mobile devices. Yes, so if you are a Windows Phone user using something that isn't a 950 or a device that's shipped with Windows 10 Mobile and is still on the Windows Insider supported list, you can now upgrade to Windows 10 Redstone. So if you're on a 930, an 830, a 735, 635, I think, with the 1 gigabyte
We have a
RAM.
full list here. It's actually quite long. It even includes things like the Alcatel One Touch Fierce XL and some Blue devices as well.
Yeah. So those devices
The MCJ Madosma Q501, Zach. I know that's a hot device.
Absolutely. That one can now finally get Windows 10 Mobile Redstone. Lots and lots and lots of good stuff there. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go ahead and download it. The latest build is 14.295, which was also the build released today. So upgrade to that and have a good time. Again, of course, since it's pre-release, there are bugs, so make sure you read the known issues list first. All that good stuff. Sean, your story is next.
Yeah, no, I do have one note this week. Well, even though I don't have video. So yeah, Windows 10 Mobile, we started the rollout last week. We're going to do our best to not only cover that. Obviously, things happen like carriers start rolling it out and that sort of thing. But that is the news story. Well, according to AdDuplex, about 50% of devices that can update to Windows 10 Mobile have. That's the stat? Or no, I'm sorry. No, that's not the right stat. Before anyone corrects me. Only 50% of Windows Phone devices in use can update. And out of those, 15.2% of the devices that are capable of updating have. Sorry about that. Glad to clarify. So there's kind of a two-pronged thing on this. One, how do we feel about only half the devices that are that are running Windows Phone can run this at all? Which is obviously, I think, it's not an especially high number. I mean, half of an already small market share. So it's 2% market share, and only half of that. So 1% of the mobile market share even has the option of running Windows 10 Mobile.
Yeah.
So that's pretty low. What do you think of that, Zach? Do you think, because last week we kind of debated about this a bit, did Microsoft betray people or did they break promises? But now that we have some more hard numbers thanks to AdDuplex, what are your thoughts on that specific percentage?
I mean, Microsoft knew that this would happen, of course. They made the decision, they could see the market share. They was like, well, this means even less people are going to get Windows 10 Mobile. But this reflects back to the whole thing that I've been saying. Microsoft aren't ready to push Windows 10 Mobile yet. They're not ready to advertise it. They don't even want people to know it exists. So them only pushing it to half of the population of Windows Phone devices isn't a big deal to Microsoft. Who it could be a big deal to, though, are developers. In the sense that why would developers develop for a 1% market now instead of 2%? You've essentially halved the market share of these two platforms. Now it's 1% for 8.1 and it will be 1% for Windows 10 Mobile. But when you consider the Universal Windows platform is on more than just mobile, it's still a better option. So a developer can either target 1% market share for Windows Phone 8.1 and have the app run on only Windows Phone 8.1, or a developer can target the other 1% of that market share, Windows 10 Mobile, and have the app run on not only Windows 10 Mobile, but the huge market share that is Windows 10, 250 million people on desktop, HoloLens, all that good stuff, IoT. It makes sense for a developer to target Windows 10 Mobile, even though Windows 10 Mobile isn't rolling out for everyone.
Well, and then in addition to the fact that it's even if you're looking at 50-50, so it's 1% market share overall versus 1% market share overall, these numbers eventually are going to skew towards the Windows 10 mobile sides because people are going to ship away from older devices. Now, you could make the argument that some of these people are going to get disenfranchised with Microsoft and they're not going to shift from one to the other by buying a new handset. They're just going to leave. But I do think that overall, people that are in the, like we've talked about this before, if you're in the Windows ecosystem, I think a lot of people are either going to stick around or they're going to try out the new one or whatever. And like you said, Windows 10 is huge. So I think it's not as bad as it could be, but I'm not going to sit here and like sugarcoat it. I think I've probably defended Microsoft enough. I think 50% is pretty low. I really wish it was a bit higher because it really shows to me how many devices were low-end, older devices that were on Windows phones. So even the small market share that they had was still heavily weighed towards being lower-end devices and relatively old devices. Because think, even like the 430 got Windows 10 mobile, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that means that it's not just about how low it is, it's about how old it is. A lot of these Windows Phone users have been on devices for a really long time, which is actually a theme we're going to get to later in the show about sticking on a device for a long period of time. I think that could actually be a bad sign for Microsoft as well. Because if a lot of you people are running 520s, they're probably not updating just because, they don't want to try the 540. There's probably a reason they're still on the 520. Economics, availability, that type of thing. They might not upgrade for a long time, and they are going to get left behind. So it's an interesting problem that they're running into.
Yeah, I mean, most of the devices they left out on the list are dual-core devices, which admittedly, they do struggle with Windows 10 Mobile. But I guess options are options, right? If you could at least give them, which they do pretty much, they do give you the option via the release preview ring. You can actually update to Windows 10 Mobile via that ring, but you're just not getting it, air quotes, officially. So
I guess I would say this stat, maybe more so than the fact, like when I first heard it, these older devices, they aren't going to get it. I was kind of like, well, it's somewhat understandable that they tried to make it run on these really weak devices and they couldn't do it. But man, when it's 50%, you recognize how many of these people are on devices that they probably were not going to upgrade, basically ever. Basically, because these phones don't break. Like a 520, it's pretty low end device, but it's not just going to like break in half all of a sudden. So those people might just never update. They might be in a region or a country where that's just the phone that they're going to use pretty much forever.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, because phones they get outdated, but most phones don't just stop working, at least in my experience.
No, they don't stop. They still are. I mean, the old iPhone, the first iPhone, it still works technically. It's just not a lot of things work with it.
Right. Yeah. So there you go. If you're using your phone just for basic stuff, yeah. Anyway, so we'll have to see how that develops, and we'll have to see if that hurts. It'd be interesting to see a year from now about some of the ad duplex numbers on how many people are running Windows 10 Mobile.
Yeah.
There you go.
Moving on.
Speaking of upgrades, Zach, we have some upgradeception when it comes to the upgrade involved in upgrades, right?
Right. Windows Update is getting updated. In the latest internal Windows 10 Redstone builds, Microsoft has started improving the Windows Update experience, offering more options and features for the user to customize. So right now, Windows Update is kind of basic on phone and for desktop. You install you download an update, and then Windows says, okay, we're ready to restart. We'll restart at either 3 in the morning when you're not using your PC, or when you turn your PC off next. That's changing. Microsoft is now giving you the option to set active times, so you can tell Windows when you're using your PC, and Windows will say, okay, so you're using your PC between this time and this time. I will not try to install updates. I will only install updates outside of the time you set. It's also allowing you to customize when the PC restarts once an update is ready to install. So right now that option's kind of there, except it only shows up when the update is pending and restart. Now you can just customize it whenever you want. So if you just want to one day wake up and go, you know what, I don't want updates installing until 2 a.m, you can set that up without no updates needing to be installed anyway, which is very nice. Plus a few other user interface tweaks are on the way. I wrote about this today on WinBeta with screenshots, so you can actually go to the website and see them for yourself. The UI in the screenshots is very, very rough. And since these are pre-release, these are very early pre-release features that will change. So, you know, everything you see in the screenshots are subject to change. Pre-release software, not final product, blah, 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 blah. Changes are coming. Pretty exciting for Windows Update. More options are always good for the user. And I think being able to set active hours is nice. So you won't be interrupted anymore. Because sometimes updates do interrupt you. And that's quite annoying.
But you still have to have 40% battery to upgrade your phone. Update your phone, don't you?
Yes, you still have to have 40% battery.
Even if it's plugged in.
Even if it's plugged in.
So that's still a thing.
Yeah.
No, I think, like you said, options are always better. But I don't think there's much more to that, is there?
I do not believe so.
Right. So this week, I have a feeling this probably be a bit of a short episode, maybe as others have called their podcast when this happens, a bit of a mini-sode. There just isn't a lot of Microsoft news this week when it comes to gigantic news. We're going to get a bunch of that at Build, and we're going to talk about what we want and what we expect and all that sort of thing. But to be honest, next week is probably the week that you're going to see a lot of this stuff. But that being said, we got to have some fun this week thanks to Microsoft's Twitter AI. So her name, I'm going to say it was a she. The photo was a she, but technically it's an AI. So like Cortana, it's probably genderless. But she is an AI that's supposed to learn based on people chatting with her. Chatbots aren't new. They've been around a long time. They've just gotten better over time. But they want her to learn to interact with people. They were specifically targeting 18 to 24-year-olds. And one of the things that they wanted to do in their phase of development, they said, okay, we rolled it out to more people, and then to more people, and then to more people. So how do we get even more folks to help her learn and improve? They thought, 18 to 24-year-olds, millennials, lots of chatting. What would this be great for? And they thought, Twitter. So we got this Twitter AI going around. I think she managed to send 96,000 tweets in a day, which is slightly fewer than some celebrities that I know, but more than most people. And she sends out 96,000 tweets or whatever she did in a day. She, to be honest, if you look at her timeline, it actually kind of looks like a lot of timelines you'll see on Twitter, just kind of banter and back and forth and kind of nonsensical comments. The problem that Microsoft somehow didn't expect, which to be honest I'm confused by, because as others have pointed out, people were going to try this. She had some commands and some, characteristics that made her say things that were very inappropriate.
Well, but basically what happened was that she learned from the people she spoke to, and Microsoft says this was a coordinated attack. So people were saying horrible things to her, and then she was adding that to her dictionary and collection and reusing them in other conversations. That's pretty much
so people
what happened.
Would say things like, she had what I saw, I can't verify this, but she had some sort of copy, repeat after me command. So someone would tweet her and say, Tay, repeat after me. She'd say, I do my best. And then they would say something like, Hitler did nothing wrong, which is obviously, wrong because he did horrible things. And then she would use that, as you pointed out, in completely unrelated conversations.
Yeah, so she learned how to be rude, and she wanted to hate humans and hated feminists and all, a lot of things that you probably shouldn't be saying on Twitter. It's all hilarious, though, which is why I don't see why they have taken her down, because it's a robot. It's not like... People know that she's not actually causing offense because she doesn't know what she's saying. It's just a robot. Even though it's kind of artificial intelligence in a way, in the sense that she kind of learned and was reusing these intelligently in conversations where it could come up. They were like debates about things. She would bring up relevant words that would make sense in a response in a conversation. So although people were egging her on to say things like this, she knew where to put them, which is kind of where the issue is. So in a whole day, Microsoft released a bot, and in the morning, this bot was like, "Hello, I'm so excited to talk to all of you people," and then by the end of the day, it was a racist Nazi, pretty much.
And we were all having a bit of fun, and we said, if she keeps this up, she'll be a Republican nominee, or maybe she'll run for vice president, because and people were having a good time with it, because like you said, it's a robot,
right?
And so I think maybe because it had like official Microsoft kind of connections.
Yeah, that's
Microsoft
why.
wants that down. If they had kind of just like released her, but not said if it just said like an AI robot that learns the more you tweet at her, and then they didn't attach themselves to it, I still think this would have gone off the rails. And I still think, like, if you go on Twitter too much, I think anyone would go crazy. But when it's a robot who, as articles have pointed out, definition is naive, she's going to get taken advantage of. And so like you said, I think it's actually kind of funny. I kind of wish it stuck around more than a day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Didn't Microsoft release a statement today?
Yeah, so they released like an official statement, which again, it's almost phrased as if they had an employee who said these sort of things. Let me read a couple of quotes. They said, as many of you know by now, on Wednesday we launched a chatbot called Tay. We are deeply sorry for the unintended, offensive, and hurtful tweets from Tay, which do not represent who we are or what we stand for, nor how we designed Tay. And then said Tay is now offline and we'll look to bring back Tay only when we are confident we can better anticipate malicious intent that conflicts with our principles and values. They go on to point out what you said about malicious attacks that were organized and that sort of thing. But they're acting like they had a head of a department say something racist on Twitter. It's a robot.
Microsoft is having an unfortunate couple of weeks. Last week they had the schoolgirl incident. This week they've got a racist Nazi on Twitter. So what's next week, guys? What is next? Build is next week.
Well, who knows what'll happen at Build.
They should bring out Tay on stage.
Oh yeah, there you go. They said in the last week. Some of the funnier jokes that I saw, someone said maybe Tay will spend her offline time watching, that video where people were bullying the robots?
Yeah.
Maybe she'll watch that and then she'll seek revenge.
She'll just destroy the whole Skynet, guys. This is how Skynet begins.
There you go. Hey, look, if you watched, and I think it's been out long enough that I can say this, but if you really don't, Terminator Genesis, if you're really upset about spoilers, cover your ears for about a minute. In Terminator Genesis, the plot is a universal operating system that runs on your phones, tablets, and PCs, tries to take over the world, and it is represented embodiment by a blue hologram person.
Cortana.
I'm like, really, guys? Like, that's Microsoft, right? That's Windows 10. Windows 10, while it came out like a month before Windows 10 rolled out to the public, and then it was about this, and then now they got AI robots. So, if you're a conspiracy nut, maybe the next Terminator movie will be about a Twitter chat bot that learns to hate humanity. It happened to Ultron, folks. If it happened, he was on the internet for a day before he hated humanity. So all it takes is one day and robots learn to hate humans. That's what we learned this week.
Yeah, so the message here is if we create AIs, they're going to kill us because we're all terrible people.
Exactly. Yep. That's basically what we learned. And honestly, Zach, I've been on Twitter long enough. There are some really terrible people out there.
Yeah, the internet for you.
I mean, if you've seen YouTube comments, Twitter comments, they're pretty atrocious.
Some of the YouTube commenters are nice, like these ones.
Well, some of ours are nice.
Some of them.
Anyway,
are nice. I can't find it.
I guess we can move on to from one controversy to another. All right. So we had a poll this week. It's based on Apple's comments. So if you didn't catch, we could probably actually, if we have a little extra time, we could do this. Apple had a keynote this week. They announced things like the iPhone. Is it C or SE?
The special edition, I think.
That's boring. Anyway, so they announced basically it looks like an iPhone 5, but it has better internals. There's that smaller iPad Pro. In one of their speeches where they're trying to convince people to switch to the iPad Pro, which, it's their job to make money. So I get that they're trying, but I don't agree with how they tried. They had a quote, and they said that, if I can load this here, let me get the quote. There are over 600 million PCs in use today that are over 5 years old, which, by itself, not a terrible quote. Then they added, this is really sad. It really is. So they did this big jab at anyone who's running a PC over 5 years old. I think that it's kind of dumb. I mean, people have already pointed out all the holes in this argument. They spent the first part of their keynote talking about environmentalism, but then they want people to get rid of their old computers. They have Macs themselves that people are running that are probably over 5 years old. There are iPads still in the wild that are over 5 years old and still running. I tweeted, I said, just because Apple products don't last more than 5 years, because, iPhones, they kind of seem to die after a few major updates. Mm-hmm. So just because they don't last over 5 years doesn't mean PCs don't. So some people took this as a bit of a jab, kind of really took it to task. So I was curious. They're claiming 600 million PCs are over 5 years old. They said, how old are the PCs of most of our readers? So I did a poll this week. We have over 1,600 votes. The four options were under a year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years. And to be honest, Zach, we had pretty even results. The winner, I guess you would say, 34% 1 to 3 years, so relatively new. And then we have the next one after that, 25% are 3 to 5 years. We have 23% are over 5 years, and 18% are under 1 year. So it's actually a relatively even split. We have a good balance of people that have old PCs. But as other articles have pointed out, people upgrade PCs partially. Some people are just happy with their setup. I mean, Zach, what do you think of Apple's comments about 5-year-old PCs being really sad?
I think it's silly because even though I guess I'm in the minority in this case, in the sense that most of the devices I own are less than a year old, or maybe a bit over a year now. Like my custom, I mean, I plan on keeping hold of this custom build. I got this late last year, or sometime towards the end of last year. I plan on keeping this around for as long as I can. I mean, why not? It works, and it should work. It's powerful enough to. It's got me set for the next decade. It's the latest, the Core i7 Skylake, whatever else inside of it. You know, it's all up there. I mean, this will last me forever. So the 5-year comment is stupid, because the majority of people do just, they keep hold of what works, right? And PCs do generally work for longer periods of time than an Apple product.
Well, and I would also say all the arguments, maybe not all, but many of the arguments that Apple uses to try to get people to switch from a PC to the iPad Pro can also be used as counter arguments to say that those people are fine with their PCs. You know, the iPad Pro can't use a mouse. The iPad Pro, even the new smaller one, which we'll talk about in a sec, I guess, but the iPad Pro can't use a mouse, can't run full PC programs, but what it can do is it can work with the keyboard, and it can use things like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, some, I won't call them programs per se, but program-like things in the form of apps. You know, obviously, depending on developers, those can be in varying ranges of power. Well, the argument that you could make to say, oh, well, the iPad Pro does what many people use computers for, which is browsing the web, streaming videos, looking at photos, and like Office and Word processing. Well, you know what else can do that? Like basically any PC in the world that costs anything.
Plus more.
Newer than 10 years old.
Yeah, like, no, seriously, you can buy a PC that's a decade old and probably get by with it with Windows 10.
And that's what I mean is I don't understand. You know, they sit there and say, "Oh, switch to the iPad Pro," you know, which the full setup's going to cost you $850, and you're like, "Why would I do that? Why would I switch to a device that's limited when you can get a $300 tablet that can do the same thing as a tablet? You get a PC that can do the same thing. You can get laptops for less money." If the only thing you're using your main computing device for is those things I said, web browsing and Office, why would you get an iPad Pro?
No, you'd get something much cheaper, and you'd just, you know, more for your money, right?
And this isn't me just pushing Microsoft. Like, whatever. Like, if you like Android, that's fine. Go get an iPad Air. Like, that's fine, too. Like, if you aren't using the Pencil, the Apple Pencil, and you don't need that processing power, which I'd argue a lot of people just don't need the new iPad Pro processing power, and you love iPad, go get an iPad whatever. iPad Airs are going to be selling like anything now because there's a new thing out. So I don't understand Apple's... their entire argument doesn't make any sense to me.
No, that's strange. Apple are going on a really weird kind of path as of late. Like, they're doing kind of really strange things that they wouldn't usually do. I don't know. I wonder where Apple will be in 10 years.
Well, you know what, Zach? We're halfway through the show and only have 2 topics left, so why don't we talk about this for a sec? I actually think Microsoft is on a really good track right now on everything except for phones.
Yeah.
And I think they have good ideas for phones, but I'm not sure they're going to be successful financially. Apple seems to be a bit of a rudderless ship right now.
No, they do. They absolutely see. I mean, the iPhone sales are going strong still. But did they not like hit a peak last year? And is it still? Did it climb again this year? Or I mean, the year before last? And did it climb again last year, or did it kind of set?
Well, I mean, tablet sales overall aren't doing as well as they used to be. And
no.
People are keeping their old device or transitioning to 2-in-1s. But what I'm confused by is Apple used to be so innovative, or at least. Like with the iPhone, they didn't invent the smartphone, I guess. They didn't invent the tablet. But they certainly made one of the first ones that just worked. But I would say that the majority of people I know, if I said, here is an iPad 2 for free, I'm just giving it to you, they would use that for years and be perfectly happy with it. And it's not going to break, because admittedly, Apple does make well-made things, so it's not just going to break in half. Maybe a few years down the line, a few major updates are going to make it run too slowly. But Why would someone need a new iPad unless you're using a pencil?
No idea. And even then, you could get like a Surface Pro 3. Oh, sorry, Surface 3
Yeah.
for cheap, way cheaper with pen support and all that fancy stuff.
So I mean, people might they look at Microsoft and their mobile strategy, and they kind of make fun of it, and they look at whatever. And I think like someone saw my tablet the other day, and his initial response was, "Oh, it's oh, this thing looks like it's from the Stone Age." Well, I use a Surface Pro 2, which admittedly looks pretty old, but if you could sit him down for 5 minutes and be like, "Look at all the things that mine can do that yours can't," and this is an old version. You look at Microsoft as an idea. Two-in-ones are revolutionizing everything. I actually think Microsoft is pretty well set. They're getting people to use less and less devices to do more and more things. And Apple, I think they're just making new rehashes of their old products and not adding much to them. So
no, they've kind of gotten too comfortable with what they have. They've gone like, these are the successor products. Let's just build upon them. Of course, the market and people move on. There are better things coming out that other people are finally starting to take notice of, especially in the iPad area, in the sense that consumers are finally looking at iPads and going, well, this isn't the best you can buy now. You can buy an Android tablet or a Windows tablet and have a better experience for less money. I mean, we're not there with iPhone yet, although iPhone, I think someone did confirm, they did peak last year, so it's no longer extensively climbing, it's finally kind of slowing down. So perhaps we're finally at that stage in which people who are buying iPhones finally going, well, this isn't the best you can get now. Well, I can get something that's better for less money.
Well, we've talked about this before, and I'm sorry, people, if you get bored by this type of thing, but for me, phones are, I don't want to say they're perfected, because you're going to get little improvements, the battery life, camera, that sort of thing. But there are aspects of a phone that they can't improve anymore, in my opinion. I don't think phones should get any thinner than they are. We actually had that. The iPhone got so thin that, I don't know, bending. Some people might claim that was exaggerated, but it did happen somewhat. The next iPhone was actually a little bit thicker than that. And then the iPhone SE is actually shaped much more like the iPhone 5 than the 6.
Yeah.
So phones they've reached a point where their screen resolution is highest as you really need it to be. Their thickness and thinness is kind of worked out. Their size, form factor is working. And at the end of the day, if you're going to have it just be a phone, it's just a phone. And a new phone that you buy in 2016 today is going to be worthwhile for years, as long as the only thing you're using it for is a phone. Because you can go buy a phone right now with gigs of RAM and all sorts of memory, expandable with micro SD, really good processor, great camera. And my question to you is, in 4 years, why would you need a new phone?
No, good question.
And that's why people say, oh, this Microsoft, they've given up on mobile. And I'd say, no, Microsoft, one, either figured out or by necessity said, look, we're not going to win in mobile. Phones are kind of plateauing. Continuum, Surface phone, remote desktop. They're trying something new. Because in 5 years, if you have a Surface phone and it can run a complete set of desktop stuff on any monitor that you use in the world, wirelessly or over a wire, and Joe Schmo's on a Galaxy S9, and all it is a phone with a better camera, which one of those is a better device?
Right. Microsoft is trying to venture into a new market in which the only device you need is a phone, because your phone now does everything, whereas Apple and Google and everybody else, they're still kind of in the mindset of, you've got a PC, you've got a laptop, you've got a tablet, and you've also got a phone. They're all separate things, they do separate things, we only improve them slightly every year. And Microsoft is kind of starting to move away from that idea and more towards, why have all of these different devices when you can just have one?
Well, because we're getting phones now with 3 gigabytes of RAM, 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Right, yeah.
My Surface Pro 2 has 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Yep.
So yeah, sure, you couldn't run like AutoCAD on it, like 3D rendering. Like, I get that. But I can run very basic audition editing on here. I can run all the websites that I do. We can do the whole podcast, through, well, you do the XSplit side of it, but I can do my end of the podcast through this. If I had a phone that just ran like a desktop, but with that much processing power, and I know that it's a little different. RAM's not the only factor, I get that. But we're reaching a point where these specs are the phones that are surpassing where tablets were just 2 or 3 years ago.
Exactly.
In terms of some of the numbers. I know they're not all better. But, yeah, so I think it's quite interesting to, like you said, where's it going to be in 10 years? I bet they're still great at marketing. People still buy this stuff. But I'm very curious as well.
And right, and with the whole Windows 10 mobile thing, Microsoft kind of putting it to one side, it will blossom in the future when it needs to, because right now there is no demand for a new kind of product like what we're talking about here, whereas it's one device to rule them all. But in a few years' time, when phones have literally just, then they're not doing anything now. Just every year a new phone comes out and it's like, oh yeah, bigger battery, or more RAM or something. There will be a need for a new kind of phone device that does more than just.
How much RAM do you need when your phone's just a phone?
Well, it's just a phone, exactly. When it becomes,
you could have 16 gigabytes of RAM on the iPhone 12, but I'll tell you what, mate, it's not going to make calls any better. It's not going to text any faster, and because it's still a phone that isn't expanding onto a bigger screen, you're not going to sit there and run like Premiere Pro on your phone.
Okay, absolutely not.
And so, yeah, what are they going to do to these phones? Make them waterproof. I'm telling you, there is going to be a plateau on phones where people just sit there and say, I don't need a high-end phone to do something that last year's model did. And it seems to be on some of these stats that that's already happening. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's new customers, don't get me wrong. People grow up and they'll need phones. But I don't know. I don't know what you're going to get out of a Galaxy 12 that you're not going to get out of a Galaxy 10. I just don't.
No, you're right.
Maybe a VR headset. That's another way that Samsung's going. So that's them trying to reinvigorate a category as well.
Yep.
Anyway, we should probably move on then.
Yes.
You want to talk about the Service Hub getting shipped?
Is that my story? I can't see
sure.
a name. Right, fair enough. Microsoft is finally shipping the Surface Hub. Now, the Surface Hub was a device that was announced last year, I believe, beginning of last year. And it's pretty much kind of like a business-orientated, collaborative device. It's a big screen. You get 55-inch or an 84-inch model. And it runs a modified SKU or SKU of Windows 10 that's designed for businesses and collaboration. So you can have two people stand up at the board, draw all over it. It has support for like 10 pen inputs at one time, I think, or something like that. You can also invite other people in through Skype and all that good stuff. They're now finally beginning to ship. They are very expensive. We've spoken about the price before. I believe the 55-inch one is $9,000. How much, Sean?
55-inch one is $9,000, and the 84-inch is just under $22,000.
So not cheap. So if you're planning to get one for Christmas,
yeah, more than most cars, or more than many cars.
Yeah, so you might want to start saving up now if you're planning to get one. I mean, you wouldn't want to buy these anyway for home use, because these really aren't. I've used the Surface Hub OS, and it's really not a home use operating system. It's more for enterprises and all that stuff. So you put, as a consumer who uses, I don't know, a Windows 10 PC, laptop, whatever, it's not the same Windows 10. Although it is like full desktop Windows 10, the UI is very, very different, and everything operates in a window like on Windows 8 and stuff. Not very good, useful for consumers, but great for businesses. So if you were a business who ordered a Surface Hub, you may be getting one very soon.
There you go. I want some of these things that you see from Microsoft. I think what they need to do is they need to call up all the news networks and get them to use them.
Yeah.
Like if CNN or MSNBC or NBC or whatever use like a Surface Hub, I think that would really, people would be like, oh, what's that? Now, to be honest, the Surface Hub has a bunch of features that people don't know about or probably would never use. But if you used them on camera, it would be a really impressive device. I feel the same way about HoloLens. I think that the thing that's most impressive to me about HoloLens is that fake HoloLens camera. I mean, it's real, but it's not it's a camera that records what the HoloLens would be seeing if it was a camera. They need to use that on like every news broadcast ever, man. You can be like live via HoloLens, presidential candidate so-and-so, and then it's just right there on your set.
No, you're right, yeah.
So they need, I think Microsoft definitely push some of these things onto TV, because people, they like practical stuff. They don't care so much about some of these numbers. They want it to look cool. The Surface Hub looks cool when you see it in action. It's a pretty slick device.
Very, yeah. I mean, it's really cool because it has like loads of sensors in it. So if you're an employee at the company and because these devices hook up, so the chat's broken again. It keeps breaking for reasons unknown. These devices work mostly with domain setup. So like if you're in an enterprise, they have like your user account on a domain, on a workplace, all that other stuff, work groups. The Surface Hub will be hooked up to that domain and work group. So when you walk into a room with Windows Hello, it will see you and go, right, here you are, you're now logged in and all of your work is here. and then when you walk away, the service app will go, okay, you're here now, so you've gone now, so I'm going to wipe all the work you've just did. It's all saved onto your cloud, and this device is now ready for someone new to walk up to. I think that's really cool.
Apparently, the HoloLens was used on a TED Talk, so there you go. People are doing that.
Really? Wow, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, some of the comments are already saying maybe I'm just asking for something that's already happening. Someone said I think NCI. Well, I don't know that. Well, I don't know about that, but I think they are going to do that. But yeah, Service App is pretty sweet. It's got a really slick set of features, and I don't know if people understand how large 84 inches is. It is very large.
It's
like
very big.
Shaquille O'Neal large.
Yeah, it's so big you probably wouldn't use it in your front room or your
Like
living
literally,
room.
84 inches is 7 feet, right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So that's over 2 meters.
Yep.
Yeah, so there you go. Shaquille O'Neal as a TV screen. That's also a computer. That's amazing. All right, then. Well, Zach, we also have one more. Oh, I don't know why. Anyway, we have another Skype app coming up.
Another one.
One of the last stories of the day. One of the. So we already have, let's see here, they're opening a 4th Skype app, right?
Yeah, but
So
this Skype app is supposed, I believe it's supposed to replace the desktop app.
Hopefully, eventually.
And the 3 separate apps found on Windows 10 currently.
Right. So this is actually probably worth kind of diving into a bit. So there are a few different apps already that are powered by Skype. There's separate apps for video, voice, and messaging. They're specific, as our article points out, they're task-oriented apps. People seem to really like them for mobile and smaller screens. But people, because they look on a larger screen, we really like kind of one thing that has it all. Much, I would say, similar to the x86 Skype for desktop. And so they have this new universal app with a very long name called the Skype Universal Windows Platform App Preview for Windows 10. That's one name. Anyway, so like you said, I think hopefully over time it's going to replace some things. But it's updated a bit. It's going to come in here, and it's I think most people would use this more on a desktop. Would you use this on a desktop, Zach?
Yeah, probably.
I hope they don't, most times I see these comments and people are like, oh, every time they take something and turn it into a universal app, they take away features.
Yeah, but Skype has said that they won't do that. They won't take away the desktop app until the modern app is just as good as the desktop app. So
I'd be okay running both, because right now Skype actually has we use quite a few Skype features when we do the podcast, and there's even more that you could use. So as long as they don't take away the old one till the new one comes in, I'm okay with it.
I'm just worried that once they do kill the desktop app, which will be in a while, it won't be straight away, it'll be quite a while until they do it, but when they do kill the desktop app, XSplit works with the modern apps, because right now I can never get XSplit to show video in a modern app. It just doesn't work. So we might be in trouble in the future.
Well, I'm sure we could just use somebody else.
Yeah.
Wirecast.
Or Facebook Live.
Yeah, you know what? I actually use Facebook Live.
I know you do.
Do you? Oh, you probably see it on Facebook, duh.
Yeah, and you told me about Facebook Live. You told me about your experience.
There are some issues with it. It records in a square, even if you record in widescreen high definition.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. So we live stream some games, and we got thousands of views, but it looks like someone's filming it in like when people film with their phone upright instead of landscape?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, except that's not what happened.
No.
So yeah, I wouldn't use Facebook Live until they fix that. But yeah, I hopefully, like you said, they're going to wait some time before they replace it here. But I am happy that they've understood that when you're on a desktop and you have screen real estate or display coverage, you can, yeah, Pat, that's my word, display coverage, then you can afford to have multiple things within one app. And I think that's nice. And I've seen other people point out, they're kind of going for that iMessage feel from Mac. And I think that this is definitely going to line up more with that than the separate jumping around thing. I'm glad that we connected.
What I'm kind of interested in is what does this mean for the whole SMS integration? Because they were positioning Skype as an iMessage alternative, but that won't work if they get rid of the independent apps on desktop. I know they can't do it for phone, because obviously you can't get rid of the texting app on phone, and you can't expect people to go, all right, this is a Windows phone, I'm going to text through Skype. No, it would be you text through messages and with Skype integration, not the other way around. You don't message through Skype with text integration.
Why couldn't they do that on an all-in-one?
Because it would have to, because this new app's called Skype. It's not called messaging.
Yeah, but I mean, they could, if you go right now on Skype 86, and I'm on here right now, just on the desktop Skype, and I go down to where I could send you a message. It goes via Skype, and then I click an arrow, and it says SMS or Skype.
Right. I guess I don't know much about Skype, so I
So that
honestly.
tells me that this interface they could use it, and they would just have to over time convince people that you could text message.
But that would be, but yeah, but that's the problem. That's what they'd have to teach, and I don't think that's a good idea. Because I mean, on every other platform ever, texting is through a messaging app, and for Microsoft to change the name of that app to something branded like Skype, it would be an awful idea.
Maybe they'll just get rid of the Skype brand altogether. No, I'm just kidding.
I reckon on desktop, I reckon the messaging app will stay on desktop, but it will be for SMS only.
Could be. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how they balance that.
Yeah, I'm very confused. I guess time will tell, but I have no idea how that's going to play out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, who decided that iMessage, is just like, oh, cool, we all know what that is. I mean, why couldn't they do that with Skype?
Because, I mean, people already know Skype, but Skype is a video platform more than a messaging platform.
So what if you just had, like, they send out an update, it's the one that makes it so you can SMS message, and then every time someone boots up Skype for the first time, it goes, bam, did you know that you can now text message through your phone using your PC?
Yeah.
And then you do that for everyone that logs in the first time. You do a few ad campaigns, and then you have some pretty prominent buttons that say via SMS or via Skype.
I have no idea. We'll
see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a marketer.
Someone says Skype equal Microsoft One Chat. I would love if they had a One Chat brand and it was Skype and texting. That would be very cool.
One Chat's pretty catchy too.
It is, because it's One Chat can also mean video and messaging. And
get on it, Microsoft.
One Chat. Let's do it.
You know what? In Europe, they might have to change the name from Skype anyway.
Oh yeah, is that still ongoing? That's Skype.
I doubt it. I haven't heard about it in like a year.
No.
Anyway, remember when that was a thing? Oh, it's too much like Sky Cable.
Well, I mean, apparently SkyDrive was.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe it's all planned.
Do you reckon skydiving companies are scared?
Who knows? Who knows, mate?
Oh no, Sky are going to take us.
Anyway. All right, we're winding down a bit. We got Build next week, Zach.
Yes.
I think it was you that said you really want the new Facebook Messenger app. Was that you on Twitter that said that?
That was me.
All right, you want to talk about like what you want to see it build in terms of apps and other things, and then that's probably the end of the show.
For app-wise, I want to pretty much anything I really need is the Facebook Messenger app for Windows 10 mobile, because the Windows Phone 8 app sucks really quite badly.
Really? What's wrong with it?
It just doesn't scale properly on big phones, and it annoys me greatly. It also, the notification support is poor. I would like actionable notifications and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I just can't wait for an improved user interface, pretty much, for the messaging app.
Now, remind me, Zach, and I know I should know this, but Build, are we expecting any hardware announcements, or is this all software stuff?
It's impossible to tell. They could announce a Surface 4 next week.
That's what I would want. I want a Surface 4.
But because I mean, we are overdue now, because it was announced in March last year, I believe. So
I want a Surface 4. I want it to be better than the iPad in every way imaginable, and to be announced 1 week after it,
and
so
cheaper.
What was that?
And be a lot cheaper.
And be cheaper. So just like when they announced the iPad Pro, the full version, and then the Surface Pro 4 came out, and everyone said Microsoft had the best keynote. I want them to do it again this time, but with the Surface Pro, making the regular iPad or the iPad Pro. I don't know, what are they calling it? Are they calling it the iPad Pro Mini? Or are they just calling it the 9.7-inch iPad?
Yeah, they're just the iPad Pro in two different sizes.
In any event, I want them to just blow that out of the water. I want the Surface to be like $200 or $300 less and have everything and more. And to be honest, now with the Surface 4, it's probably going to be more powerful than a lot of Pro devices that are a few years old now. So... that'd be great to see, especially if it was like fanless or like just really good process. So I'd love a Surface 4. And then anything related to Redstone, do you think we'll get any details on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure next week that they're going to showcase improvements to Start, Action Center, and there's something else. Taskbar, I believe. I don't know about the Taskbar yet. But yeah, there are features that will be new features and details next week from Build about Redstone, which is very exciting. Now, hopefully they should announce when it's coming as well. Although, knowing Microsoft, they probably won't say when it's coming just to cover their own backside. But new feature announcements next week, improvements to the user interface all across the board. Very exciting, I believe.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, there you go. Build. We'll be here. Zach, do you want to do a live stream next week?
I'll have to talk to Ron, because obviously we've got like 3 people out next week for Build, so we might have to be writing.
That's true. I'll be writing as well. So all right, we'll talk to Ron I can't guarantee we'll have anything on build.
I'll tweet about it if we're doing a stream during build. We might have one after build, but not during. Maybe during build. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm free all next week. Like, I'm off uni, so whenever we need it, when the fans demand it, / when we can afford it. At minimum, though, next week's going to be our build special.
Yes, next week, because we will do a podcast. I guess it'll be a Wednesday podcast, right?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
It'll have to be, because if build is on Wednesday, we can do it on Wednesday.
Yeah. All right, then. Well, we'll see. There's a couple keynotes next week. Anyway, we should probably run on this show, Zach. So, take it away, man.
So that was the WinBeta podcast for the week of March 25th. You can find Shawn Michael on Twitter at Shawn_Michael_UK. And you can find me on Twitter at ZachB_. You can find WinBeta on social media. Just search for us, WinBeta. We should come up. On YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching this video here, you're likely watching it on YouTube, so just press the subscribe button that's somewhere on the screen. SoundCloud, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, all that good stuff, so you can listen to the audio podcast and all that fanciness. So thanks so much for watching, and we shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.